How's it going, everybody? I am Donut. I am here with my fiance, Thermite Kitty. There he is. We are discussing Yu-Gi-Oh! This time we are discussing the Death Tea arc. If you haven't seen it yet, I did a retrospective. We both did a retrospective on the school time Shadow Games arc, whatever you want to call that whole arc at the beginning. I have also done reactions to everything in the manga. You can find those below in the description or in the comments. There's a link to my Patreon. That is the only place you can get them. I'll explain this every time, just briefly. I would host one on YouTube if I could, but every time I host a series that is owned by Shueisha on YouTube, it has gotten my entire channel completely removed from YouTube. Shueisha don't fuck around. So, even these redirects I'm worried about because of how fucking terrible Shueisha is and everything. But it's at least not showing the manga pages, so... But on the Patreon, you can get my reactions where it does show the manga pages, and it's great. Go do that. Any tier gets you those reactions.
Boy, oh boy, there's been a lot of discourse about that as of late.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the Totally Not Mark stuff has made me even more worried. Because I'm a tiny channel, so I got no recourse. Yeah. And even the big channels don't have any recourse, so it's fucked. Anyway, Yu-Gi-Oh! Speaking of a big evil corporation...
Oh yeah!
We're here to talk about Death Tea. Here to talk about Kaiba Corp. I do find it so funny that, so we were introduced to Kaiba back in the Cards with Teeth. And back then he was, a shitty little kid. He was as shitty as basically most of the people that we were I mean, not really. There was a lot of, horrible, awful, criminals on death row, or, whatever, people that wanted to throw a dice through Yugi's forehead. So I guess Kaiba wasn't that bad, all
not
things
really,
considered. He was, I guess, honestly, one of the nicest of the, bully characters that we had gotten in the early arcs. And, I guess that was also because, he didn't really do any bullying, he just stole a card.
Yeah, and that was it was something he did basically just to Yugi, whereas all the other bullies were everyone knows me because I beat up children, or I make them buy, tickets to my show where I torture them all night.
But I think that also, makes Kaiba, Kaiba is probably the big arch rival because... he was in that arc originally. A lot of the stuff that we know about Kaiba now, everything that makes Kaiba was not really introduced in that original arc. He was a totally different character back then. Because he was just a random, 2-arc character, and that's it. But because he was in that, I think is why he became the rival character, then he fleshed him out way, way, way more. But also... if, there was another person in that two-part of the Cards of Teeth, and they were, the normal bullies, where they were trying to, straight up kill Yugi the whole time, or they were just, fully cartoonishly evil, I think it would be very hard to adjust them into being a, permanent character going forward. So, he, whether intentional or not, he really, lucked out or was, skillful of making Kaiba that... morally gray at the beginning, or just, not that bad, really. Just very normalish of a bad kid.
Yeah.
It's the kind of person you can imagine in real life, actually.
Yeah, the giant briefcase with cards that he tries to trade for the Blue Eyes White Dragon is also... it was the perfect thing to include, because, whether he meant it as Kaiba being rich, or whether it was just, he is a really good card game player, and you get cards from beating your enemies, so he just has a bunch of them. Either way, it's very easy to then look at that in retrospect and go, oh yeah, he's super rich, that's why he had all of those.
Yeah, and I do think we did establish that he was rich back in that arc, but it wasn't he is the CEO of a corporation and he is mega billionaire rich. It was oh yeah, he's a rich kid sort of thing. So you could take that in whatever way you wanted to take it. If you wanted, how extreme you wanted to take that. But yeah, I think the briefcase full of cards is a perfect thing, because again, that's something that plenty of people have done in normal tournaments. If there is not a card limit to your deck, people will bring in fucking... there was that one guy who brought in wheelbarrows worth of cards, or not wheelbarrows, what is it called? A wagon full of cards, and it was Jesus Christ. And it's yeah, eventually that is a strategy that might win, depending on what. I mean, again, you have to have, no matter how many cards you have to make sure you can get the ones you need, right? If you fill your deck up with useless shit, even if it's 1,000 cards.
I mean, I will also say that in real life, after a thing where a bunch of people, in order to protest the rule of there being no deck limit originally, like they brought in this giant stack of a deck, and like almost every card was a card that searches the deck. So they would have to like go through it and then get the card and then shuffle the entire thing.
Yes, I love that.
Like. Because of that, they changed the rules. Now you have to have there's a max cap of 60 cards.
And yeah, like I don't know how I feel about that kind of stuff, because like I know why people do that sort of thing, because it is like a look how easily this can be manipulated. But I also understand, especially for Yu-Gi-Oh, why you wouldn't want to have that, simply by the nature of like, I want to see what people are gonna do. Like that is the nature of Yu-Gi-Oh. Like what, you know, I want to see what gimmick somebody can come up with this. And like a lot of tournaments do that. A lot of tournaments purposely, like, they clearly know a rule is going to be broken, but they don't do it, I think, because they're like, I want to see what somebody can do with that. And then everybody fucking yells at them for it, and they're like, okay. But, like, that seems to be such a reoccurring thing with tournaments in general.
Yeah.
Like, we want those I mean, it creates, you know, news, it creates stories, and so, like, even if you know it might go bad, it's news. So, but yeah,
like the main, like the main rule is just like they'll try to patch out anything that makes the game not a thing you can play anymore.
Yeah.
Like if someone just walks up and they're like, "All right, you don't get to have your turn. I win." That's a real like. Well, then you can't play the game physically. Like even like a one-turn kill strategy or something is still playing the game. But if someone rocks up with their enormous stacked deck and they're like, "All right, but this turn's gonna take a long time."
I mean, that's every card game, though. That's every fucking card game. All right, so where do we start with this whole thing? Let's start before we even get to Death Tea or anything like that. We start with Mokuba bringing them over to their mansion and everything like that. I like that. So a lot of this arc still has, like, Junichi still has the injury on his face from the 1-inch terror fight that he was just in. And stuff like later on when they draw the thing on their hand and that sticks around. And I like the little, like, visual consistencies like that. They go away relatively fast, but I appreciate them for being around.
Yeah, like as you said in your reaction, this whole like the build up to this arc and then the arc itself does have a very strong feeling of this is actually all taking place in a relatively short period of time.
Yeah. Like, yeah,
or, like,
this definitely has that one long night aesthetic, but it's also not that long to where it doesn't have that disconnect sometimes.
Yeah, it's a much more breezy, consumable version of, you know, that one night.
Yeah. And yeah, I really like, Makuba warning them of Death Tea and the Capsule Monster Chest thing, and then he shows up outside the arcade thing, and again, the arcade thing has Kai's name there, like, Kai on the machine. Like, we really are, like, building up Death Tea before we even get to it, and I really like that. Like, he had this idea, and he wanted to slowly get to it.
Yeah.
So, we do Russian roulette. You have anything to say about Russian roulette? Or Russian roulette dinner, I guess? Like,
it's...
No, you go first. I don't have anything to really say about it.
Just like... In the same way that Mokuba has Capsule monsters, and then, you know, Kaiba has Duel monsters, I do like the Russian Roulette dinner for being this, like, you know, very tiny death game, and it is, like, intentionally very kiddie, quote unquote, with, like, you know, the plates of food and whatnot.
Yeah. Like, yeah, I like it for what it is. I don't have a lot to say about it, but yeah, I do like it as just being another one of our little mini games that we play before something else. Like, yeah, this is the kind of stuff I'm gonna miss. Like, the fact that we have Duel Monsters covers are like, oh, what are we doing for an arc? Or, like, you know, you can do so many different characters with that without having to introduce a whole new game first, like we do normally. And again, a lot of times, actually, I'm realizing that in these Yu-Gi-Oh! Chapters, the two-parters sometimes are not my favorites. It's always the one-parters that I like more. But, so I'm gonna miss these a lot more, I think. The just, like, random duels that are not a game, but are just, like, a fun thing to do.
Yeah, because when they're a single chapter, Takahashi also has to be more breezy with the explanations. Like,
Yeah.
he can come up with an interesting concept, but it also has to be relatively easy to understand because he has to introduce it, like, not even at the very start, but, like, a few pages in. It can only take, like, a page or two, and you have to be able to just get it.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think that's why those are a lot better because, again, I like the ones that aren't a pre-established game that exists either in universe or in our universe. I like when it is just something like, hey, I'm putting an explosive on this piece of ice and we're gonna hit it back and forth on this hot table, or stuff like the money thing, like just very shit like that, where it's like we're just gonna do this random thing as a gamble. I mean, that is what this whole thing used to be about, and I hope we get back to that in a sense. Again, in my mind, I'm thinking that is going to continue on in the Duel Monsters may be our main game, but I assume we're going to have a lot of stuff on the periphery of that. I don't know how I'm trying to say this. Like, okay, we're playing Duel Monsters, but also this is happening. Or we're playing Duel Monsters, but it's on a fucking active volcano or some shit like that. That's the kind of thing I'm imagining. Like, we are playing Duel Monsters, but there is a gamble going on in the background as well.
That's a good idea.
And like, yeah, I'm sure there's going to be, other stuff as well, but it's hard to predict. Like, that's the only thing I can think. The playing a game of Duel Monsters on an active volcano is the kind of thing I mean. I don't think that exactly will happen, but that's the kind of thing I mean.
Mm-hmm. I gotcha.
Mm-hmm. Like, playing the game, but there's fucking swinging axes, and if you do X, then you might get hit by the swinging axe. Like, I would want it to be more than, like, if you lose, here's the penalty game. Because, yeah, we do that a lot already, but I'm thinking of something separate from that.
Yeah.
So, then we get into Duel Monsters once more with the epic duel of Seto Kaiba versus Grandpa. Grandpa is so funny to me because, like, we established from the very beginning that he doesn't play Duel Monsters, and Yugi keeps doing, like, I love Yugi as the unreliable narrator. Like, we have Light Yugi as, like, our unreliable narrator who is so gullible and immature and doesn't understand so much of how the world, and I don't want to say how the world works, but just, like, he's so socially inept. Like, he doesn't understand how people talk, or, like, he takes things very, very literal a lot of times. And like, Dark Yugi is way more like, the true gamer. You can trust his word, what he said. Like, he understands people, he understands how games are played and everything like that. But yeah, like, the complete literalness of Yugi, where he's like, my grandpa has never played Duel Monsters. That means he's undefeated. And I love that.
Oh, God. Yeah. I mean, I love that Kaiba also, tells us this entire crowd of children, like, I'm gonna fight this grandpa. He's never lost the duel.
Yeah, to be fair, that's true. Kaiba's also like, yeah, he's undefeated. I can't deny it. Mm-hmm. And by that logic, I guess that's true. He is still, I mean, he has one of the rarest cards in the world, and he is undefeated.
None of that is wrong.
None of that is incorrect. But yeah, I like that Grandpa has stuck around as a, in a normal series like this, I would expect it to always be, oh no, Anzu is kidnapped again. We gotta do something about that. But I appreciate that it's always, oh no, my fucking grandpa's fucking in trouble.
Yeah.
I guess not always, but you know what I mean. Full disclosure, I read a little bit into Duelist Kingdom. Mm-hmm. Like, by the time of recording this. But I appreciate that, I appreciate actually that Anzu was, here in Death Tea, just working here as a job, and then joined us. And then Kaiba is also, like, Kaiba never considers her to be a part of this. Like, we see him with, like, little chess pieces of all of them, and it's like, oh, yeah, he doesn't care about Anzu helping them, but he also doesn't consider Anzu to be a part of this. Like, I imagine when it was oh, Yugi, if you lose this duel against me, then I'm going to kill your grandfather and kill all your friends. I assumed he probably wasn't going to kill Anzu, because he's like, well, she's not a part of this. But yeah, I like Anzu just working there and then being like, I guess I am helping now. I guess my job was trying to murder you guys. But yeah,
boy.
No, go ahead. Keep going.
She's had a pretty rough go at trying to earn money to go to New York.
Yeah, pretty rough. Yeah, I hope she gets. So far we don't know what job she got after this, so I hope she did get another job and is saving up that money. Man, went through 2 jobs in such a short amount of time, and for a very good reason. It's not like it was her fault, Somebody fucking assaulted her, and then her job tried to make her murder people. Man, the economy today.
That's capitalism.
Speaking of capitalism, we get our virtual duel boxes introduced here for the first time. So we have like 2 different versions in this arc. We have the duel boxes, which we only see at the very beginning when he faces off against... No, not at the very beginning. We see that, and then against Makuba as well as the duel box. And then with Kaiba, it's the dual dome. But yeah, so it's cool that we have like multiple versions of that. And for Capsule monsters, I fully understand it. There's like this giant virtual field underneath it that you can see playing. But for the dual boxes, the dual monsters are like inside the box, and it's like the virtual monsters are inside the box, and it's such a small box. How is anybody in the crowd seeing any of this? How is this entertaining to anybody? But I do love that, like, Yugi makes Kaiba experience death, Yugi makes Makuba experience death, and then they're like, alright, we've made these virtual duel boxes, which now, when you lose the game, will make you experience death. Like, he just, like, incorporates that into it as well, which I have to assume this is a 4D experience, and not just a, like, visual thing. Like, it's got visual, it's got sound, of course, but it seems to also have touch, smell, everything.
Imagine being one of the playtesters and being told, yeah, now you have to do the part where you see how long it takes before you go insane.
Yeah, they have down to such a science. How many people had to do that before they're like, alright, now we got it.
Well, I guess it's either go insane or get chopped.
That's true. Okay, so then we start up Stardust Shootout, which is one of the best names we have for a duel. I can't think of a better name for a duel than Stardust Shootout.
Yeah, it sounds so cool.
Or I think it was like Stardust Shooters or something as well, was maybe what it was when I read. I don't know why in my head it was Stardust Shooters, but Stardust Shooter, Stardust Shootout, either one sounds just as good. I love whenever we get introduced to, like, here's the random people that were hired to kill them. Like, that's so funny to me every time that Kaiba just hires murderers. But yeah, I have nothing to say really about Stardust Shootout. It was a very, very fun one, but I don't have anything, like, in retrospective to say. It was a very fun first thing we did for Death Tea.
Yeah, I appreciate that earlier during the school festival we set up that Honda had, like, the airsoft gun, and he has, like, an interest in that sort of thing. And then in Stardust Shootout, he is the one gunman who is actually good at shooting, and he gets some time to shine here after an entire series of not really getting any time to shine ever.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about that. This was like Honda's like one big moment. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, like, this is also the nice, like, Yugi barely gets to do anything in this one, but that is because, like, the rest of the team is pulling their weight. Like, Honda, is the good shooter, Jonouchi has the big, I'm gonna just run on top and try and shoot someone thing, Anzu has the gun.
Yeah. I really appreciate all of Death Tea for being, one of the first times in the series since the beginning that we get the things are won by strategy, and, it doesn't necessarily need to be Yugi every time.
Yeah.
Like, I would say the majority of Death Tea is not Yugi, solving it. Like, he wins the last 2 duels, he wins Russian Roulette dinner, and the blood thing. There's not a name for that duel, but yeah, so Yugi is in the minimum of how many things he finished versus how many everybody else figured out.
Yeah, that is actually really cool.
Okay, so we have, first off, we just went into Stardust Shootout, but, like, let's give a bit overall first of Death T's insanely complicated is. I know I've said it plenty of times in my reactions, but I have to also say, like, of course, these retrospectives are for people who are not all watching my reactions, so, but we have Death T1, Death T2, Death T3, Death T4, Death T5. One, all of them are Death space T dash the number, even though the name of the whole thing is Death dash T. Then we also have Death T1 is Stardust Shootout. Death T2 is a little mini game before we even get to Death T2, so I guess it's not Death T2. It's under the category for Death T2, but it is canonically not Death T2 because we get to Death T2 after this. So this is just a mini game in between Death 1 and Death T2. Then we have the Murderer's Mansion, which has inside it the whole like blood thing. Then we have the Chop Man thing. Then in Death T3, it's just the cube room sort of thing. Then in Death T4, we have the Capsule Monster Chess Arena. And then finally in Death T5, we have the Duel Dome with Duel Monsters. But, again, even going into this further, Arena 1 is everything pre-Death T1. Like, it is the whole room where we did the thing with Grandpa. That's Arena 1. And then all Death T1, Death T2, Death T3, not arenas. Death T4 is Arena 2, and then Death T5 is Arena 3. So unbelievably complicated. It's nothing doesn't make sense. It's just too complicated.
Yeah, there's just a lot going on in there.
Yeah, like I think that's because like nothing is inconsistent. I mean, the only inconsistent thing is the fact that it is Death dash T and then Death space T dash numbers. But again, it's only inconsistent in that. But the Death space T dash numbers are all consistent in being that, at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, everything is consistent. It's just complicated for seemingly no reason. Like, again, I get it. The arenas are literal arenas. They are where you are doing, like, a duel. But it's like, it's so weird they are arenas, and they are also T-dash numbers.
Yeah.
Anyway, because Arena 1 isn't. Why was Arena 1 not T-1? Whatever. I had to get it out again. But yeah, also worth noting that, like, in most of our, like, you know, Death T-number things, there's no, like, penalty games for any of that, really. We have penalty games for our arenas, but we don't have penalty games for the other games. And, like, some, obviously, like, how are you going to do a penalty game for Death T3? How are you going to do a penalty game for blocks are falling on your head? What are you going to do for that? But, like, the Chop Man, I mean, the Chop Man's penalty, I mean, he didn't have a penalty game, but if you want to say his penalty game was dying, then...
I would say it's pretty consistent in Yu-Gi-Oh! Actually, that if you're going to explode or be set on fire, then you don't get a penalty game.
I mean, that one guy was set on fire and his penalty game was fire with a tilde and 2 exclamation marks. Why was Chop Man's penalty not fire with a tilde and 2 exclamation marks?
You know, you raise good points.
But yeah, like... Again, we talked about in the beginning of Yu-Gi murdering people during the first school arc, but again, a lot of that you can go, maybe he did, maybe he didn't, but in this, Junichi straight up murders that serial killer. It's a serial killer, it's fine, but he does murder him, and then also, the fucking butler dies on the like, train thing going to, what the fuck is it called, the electric chair ride, but yeah, he fucking dies. The baby kills him, I guess. Baby's got a death under his belt.
Aw, yeah.
Or a murder under his belt, I guess just to say.
He killed one, he was ready to kill more after that.
I mean, he was trying to kill all of them the whole damn time.
Aw, yeah. That's Joji for you.
I hate this baby so much. I wish you could give me a 100% guarantee that this baby is not going to be in Yu-Gi-Oh! Anymore. I want to know that this son of a bitch will never appear again.
I'm like 99% sure he doesn't appear again.
But you know I will come for you and I will kill you if you say that this baby doesn't appear and then he does. But yeah, it's so awful.
I wanted to also just say that at the time people didn't like the baby, and we know that because the anime removed him and replaced him with Miho.
Hell yeah! Thank God! Fucking based anime! I love Miho now. I've never seen her. I don't know anything about her. I love her now.
You saw her once.
Did I?
Yeah, she was the girl.
Yeah.
Honda was trying to propose to.
Yeah, I forgot that she was an actual real character. It wasn't just someone they randomly made up. But yeah, I appreciate that. It's so funny to me that the anime has just Miho be there for them, like just as a part of it. So funny.
It really is.
It's just a completely. We've made so many jokes about One Piece of like, what if there was just another Straw Hat that was there? But this is basically what that is. Like, what if there was just another character? Like, just you telling me that Miho is here is the same as if I was reading any other series, and you're just like, by the way, the anime also had Bob was there with them, and Bob was also their friend, and I'm just like, who? It's so weird to me. Like, for people that have seen the anime first, I can't describe how fucking insane it is to know that there is just this random character who is a one-off character, assumingly never introduced again. I mean, also, I know the anime, like, where Miho has not come up in the manga again, to where I am in Duelist Kingdom, but where I am in the manga in Duelist Kingdom is past where the anime has already started. So, yeah, it's not like they knew that Miho is gonna be a character later on. Like, I thought maybe that would be the case or something, but no, that can't be the case. So they did just take this character who is only in one chapter, and they were like, we're gonna make her part of the series now. Is she in Duelist as the main character?
No.
Okay. So they just really wanted her only for season 1, season 0, whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah.
Is there a reason why they called it season 0, by the way?
It wasn't called season 0 at the time. Like, people call it that in hindsight. It's
even Japanese fans, or is this an English fan thing?
I believe even Japanese fans will call it like season 0 or like the first series.
Okay. I don't know why you just wouldn't call it season 1. Why? I mean, I guess to be fair, it's a separate anime.
Yeah, like it's made by a different studio altogether. Like, it's a Toei anime as opposed to I forget what studio did Duel Monsters.
Oh, I did not know it was not Toei.
Oh, absolutely not. But yeah, you can really transfer the concept of what if this character from, like, not even the first arc, but an arc near the start was then part of the main crew to any other series, and it will never stop being funny.
Yeah, it's so wild. I gotta watch the anime now just to see. Like, I am interested in watching the anime for the Duelist stuff going forward and stuff, but I don't really know anything about the anime for that stuff. But yeah, the season 0, I definitely want to watch at some point because it seems so different, so different in the anime.
Yeah. I should also actually say now, before we, like, this is a pre-Death Tea thing, but before that, like, with the manga, we had a little bit of build-up to Death Tea, just like 2 chapters. Whereas in the anime, Kaiba has the, what are they called again? Like, not the Big 5. It was like the Big Dueling 4 or some shit.
No idea.
But yeah, like, there are these 4 mini-bosses that he found that were, like, the greatest gamers in the world. And so we had, like, they weren't one after another, but just interspersed in other, like, arcs and stuff. We would have just, one of these gamers show up, and they would be, like, a gaming hitman, and they'd find Yugi and, try and fight him.
It just, like, randomly throughout? Like, it wasn't, like, 4 leading up to Death, it was just, like, randomly throughout?
Yeah. Like, just in between when Kaiba first loses and when Death Tea starts. Like, we get a whole, like, Kaiba starts calling in these people and they fight Yugi.
Okay. Man.
And, like, none of them are like adaptations of the manga. Whereas some of the other arcs are like, this is based on the manga, but we changed it a whole lot.
Yeah.
All of those 4 hitmen are completely unique.
I do always appreciate some like wholly unique filler. I honestly appreciate it way more than like when you throw in filler in the middle of canon stuff, because it's like I like that, but that also has a way higher possibility of fucking up and being like, causing problems later down the line.
Yeah, I mean, it also just helps that like the Toei anime is so unbelievably different, and then Duel Monsters does the hard like you don't need to have seen that one in order to understand this one.
That's
we're
wild,
not gonna.
Too.
Yeah.
Because like I would not have expected that. Like I'm used to like Dragon Ball, where it's like Dragon Ball Z starts, and Dragon Ball Z anime, as far as I'm familiar, does not start with like a recap or anything like that. It's Dragon Ball Z, and most people started with that, but it does not try and be like, here, let's explain what the fuck's going on. It's just like, nope, it's new chapter.
Yeah, there's just
I was just gonna say that like going from Yu-Gi-Oh to Yu-Gi-Oh Duelist was such a way bigger difference than going from like Dragon Ball to Dragon Ball Z, where it's like there's a big time skip, but it feels just like the next chapter. But yeah, I imagine those like the 4 duelists or whatever that you were talking about, that seems to have created, or I imagine would have created a big plot hole for Duelist Kingdom then. I guess not a big plot hole. It's just like, if those were the 4 biggest duelists in the world.
They were called the Game Masters. That was it.
The Game Masters. That's so funny. And like, we have a whole separate thing that's Game Masters.
Right. Yeah, he has like in his office, he has like these 4 statues of the Game Masters, and then he can like call upon them, and then they'll show up and fight people from other companies. And in the series, it's like, yeah, usually I use them to take down other companies, but I'm going to use them now to defeat Yugi.
To take down other companies? What? What the fuck? What the fuck? What does that mean?
The anime does so much. Like, again, there's such a hard reason why it is like season 0, why it is the like, this is separate from what we're gonna do in the future. It's a fundamental, like, we cannot go over all these changes and then try to integrate them into the main material.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to. Like, One Piece does that very well with just, like, if something happens in filler, we're just not going to acknowledge it. There's been so many filler plot holes in One Piece of, like, the filler doing something and then way later the Straw Hats experiencing that for the first time, and anime only is like,
yeah.
What? But I thought... But yeah, so I think that's how you have to handle filler. You just have to go, whoops, we fucked up, oops. It is very dope when you can incorporate filler into canon in a way that is extremely satisfying later on. Again, going back to like One Piece, like, a lot of like individual filler episodes in Alabasta, and then at the very end of Alabasta, we have the cutting around showing everybody where they're at the end of the arc and that, and we also see all the filler characters and like, more stuff of that. I'm like, that's a great way to handle that, because it still fits in. But you don't have to. You can always just ignore it.
Yeah, it really depends on the philosophy of, like, your adaptation.
Like, would it be worth it to watch the first episode of Duelist at some point, even while I'm in the middle of Duelist Kingdom? Or is there, like, spoilers in it or something? But I'm just curious how much it recapped, what it recapped, and stuff like that.
I believe you should be completely safe for, like, the first 2 episodes.
Okay. I might do that. Just to see, like, what do anime-onlys who started with just Duelist, like, what do they know? And
honestly, yeah, I 100% support, if you are ever to watch the Season 0 anime, I think you'd have a lot of fun with it. And there's so many changes that you do not, like, you're not that spoiled from reading the manga.
Yeah.
Which is interesting in its own right. Yeah. Like, what I was saying before with, like, the different philosophies of adapting stuff is, like, the number of changes they made is the kind of thing that makes me think, like, maybe they didn't, like, I don't know how much faith they had in the original series. Because it is a big, like, we don't think people are going to want it to be exactly like the manga. We don't think they want to see this scene or that scene, exactly animated. Because there's so much stuff that they do that's, wholly original, and there's so much stuff that they just do not do.
Yeah, but to be fair, this is a 1998 anime, I believe it was, and like
I believe so.
Back in that day, like I think most anime that comes out at that time was not like we're gonna do an exact 1-to-1 uh, adaptation. I feel like that's a more modern thing to be doing. Like, we're just adapting the manga straight up.
Right.
But yeah, I feel like that used to not be the case. I feel like it used to be you watch an anime for a manga, and if it came out in like the 90s, then you can expect the anime is probably going to be pretty different than the manga. And yeah, I don't know why that is. You know, maybe more people read manga back then, so it was like, well, people have already experienced the stories, so let's do something different. I don't know. Like, it appeals to me tremendously. It appeals to, like, that's the exact kind of thing I love. Like, I've already read the manga. I don't want to just watch the manga animated. I want you to see what your vision for it was. Same thing, live action adaptations and stuff.
Yeah, like, especially with the current state of the anime industry and the fact that, you know, stuff gets pumped out so fast. I can understand being more accurate to the source material as just a basic, like, you don't have time to think about what you want to do with the series for a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you just fundamentally have to put it out, and if the manga's already there as your storyboards, you may as well just do it. Like, that is what fascinates me with... or even, you know, like, adaptations like, you know, the old JOJO'S OAVs, where it's a fundamental, like, someone had to put way more thought and effort into how to abridge all of this and, like, make it its own thing that still stands on its own, and, you know, adapting the entire second half of Stardust before the first half. It's the most, like, you put so much more effort into it than, you know, adapting it straight, and so that always just fascinates me.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that. You know, no one talks about anime nowadays of, like, oh, you know, that's an interesting, like, no one talks about the director's, you know, view on the material in terms of, like, anime and everything like that. But that is, you know, instrumental. Like, even if it is a one-to-one adaptation, there is a new vision being put into it simply by adapting it and everything like that. And so I much prefer when it is, you know, got a lot of differences, a lot of changes. Again, like you said, the difference between, like, the JoJo anime and the JoJo OVA is hugely different. And it's like, yeah, I love the anime. I absolutely love the anime. But the OVA is a whole nother fucking entire thing because it's so unique. So, okay, let's get back to Death Tea. We talked about the electric chair ride. The butler died. Baby killed him. What else is there to say?
It's fine. He was a master of torture.
Yeah.
This isn't an innocent man.
Nah. He's done. We got the death match. We got the blood puzzle and Chop Man. A lot of this is so, like, there's not much to say because it's very, very, like, there's nothing to talk about. It's a very one way to solve puzzle, and once you figured it out, it's like, what else do I say now?
It's interesting to consider, like, Kaiba's thought process behind all of these, because all of them, like, you know, especially the ride to the killer's mansion, like, all of that is, like, it's a thing with, like, 5 seats on it, one of which is for the butler. Like, it is so designed specifically knowing that, yes, I want to kill Yugi, but also Yugi's going to bring his friends along, and I'm gonna just allow that.
Yeah. Apparently didn't know, like, how many, because he didn't think Anzu was gonna be a part of this, but...
He didn't plan for the baby. There was no baby carriage. But yeah, like, it makes me just imagine the possibility of, like, what if Yugi had come on his own? Like, how was he supposed to fight the Chop Man?
I mean, yeah, would Yugi have been able to beat the Chop Man? I highly doubt it. Even Dark Yugi, maybe not.
Oh, Dark Yugi would have been sweating like hell.
But yeah, it was super cool just to see one that was a physical fight, basically. I mean, and just a death match with a fucking, like, a serial killer that is, like, Texas Chainsaw Massacre kind of fucking serial killer. Like, that whole arc was like, that is a true horror mansion, yeah.
God, I am just a sucker for the chain battle deathmatch, you know, kind of like in part 1 of JoJo'S.
Yeah.
The specific, like, we are chained together, I cannot leave.
Yeah. And, like, especially with Junichi being, like, 1,000 times weaker than this guy, like, he can just yank him around.
Yeah, like, we've spent so long building up Junichi as being, like, the strongest guy in Japan. Like, he can fight entire gangs. But, I mean, he can't fight the Chop Man. And when you look at him, it's like, yeah, this is a giant wall of beef wearing a goddamn TV on him.
And you
like,
say that, yet he did beat him. We can say all we want, oh, he can't fight this guy, oh, he's too strong for him, but Junichi did kill him too.
Mm-hmm. Fire makes everyone equal.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think like around Death Tea is where I really started to warm up to Jinochi like majorly. Before that, it's very, very against him. Did not like him as a character, but Death Tea is where he like really started. Like a couple chapters before that as well, but Death Tea is where I really started to be like, okay, I like Jinochi a lot.
He's just an asshole friend, but he is a friend.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he's not an asshole friend anymore. He did legitimately go through actual character development, and he is a child, so I give him a lot more leeway.
Mm-hmm.
He's, you know, and I think it's also being put next to the kid makes him a lot more likable.
Oh yeah, you were calling for this baby to die.
Mm-hmm. I was just calling for Junichi to be out of the series before. I was calling for this kid to be murdered on panel. But yeah, so we have the whole rhythm rock game, the Death T3 with the falling bricks. Not an interesting gamble in any way. Something I love in like a video game sort of thing, but wasn't an interesting gamble. Way more interesting in like the talk that we had during it.
Yeah, like I like that it is in a way two separate games, or you know, in the fact that the previous one is did he just lock us in here to die? Are we just gonna starve to death?
Mm-hmm.
And then we get the rhythm rock, and it's like, oh, okay, we're just gonna be crushed to death. That's fine. We can deal with this one.
And then Honda does the big, oh no, my jacket is trapped. And then he comes back at the very end with the big reveal of, I took off my jacket. Rhythm Rock is the lamest one.
Mm-hmm. Nice hearing like Anzu's like, you know, dancing skills come into, you know, like the fact that they can use them with the like the rhythm of it and the idea of like, oh yeah, you can predict all of these, but even like, you know, Yugi didn't like snap into focus and go like, oh, it's like a rhythm. She was the one who figured that one out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, I really appreciate that. Like, yeah, Yugi didn't figure out any of this. Like, even if you want to count the like sitting in silence and everything like that, even Yugi was the one freaking out the most about that, and everybody else had to calm him down.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always nice to get, you know, what am I supposed to say? Get a duel where it is Yugi and not Dark Yugi.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was really nice to have the talk. You know, everybody finding out about the other side of Yugi now and everything like that. Like, it's crazy that we have all this happen, like the lamest of the duels of Death Tea. But like, I think that's what makes it more memorable than the duel itself.
Yeah, like it is more of a breather. It is just a time to talk, you know, hear what the characters talking and figure out where they're at right now.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, like, what an insane, or actually. Hold on. Mm-hmm. No, we didn't have the conversation inside Death T, or inside T3, right? We had it as soon as we got out, I think. Is that correct? Because I don't think Honda knows.
Oh, the other me thing?
Yeah.
I believe that was after.
Yeah. So it didn't even happen in Death T3, actually.
Yeah, the Death 3 one was just Jinochi saying, like, you know, your friends, you know, are someone you like, and then because you like your friends, you like yourself.
Yeah.
Like, it was that speech.
Right. It was, yeah, okay. Got a little confused on that aspect there, but I did remember yet. Honda doesn't know yet, which is interesting that we wanted to do it. No, Honda's not allowed to know yet, but Junichi doesn't understand it, doesn't care, and now Anzu is falling in love. But we move on to Capsule Monster Chess. We got Yugi versus Makuba once more, playing Monster Capsule Chess. My favorite idea of a game. I sure do love the concept of Capsule Monster Chess. But, you know, I feel like we talked about Capsule Monster Chess plenty last time. What is there to say about it this time? Not much. It was basically the same as last time.
Yeah, it was just kind of fleshing it out a little bit more, seeing a little more of it.
Yeah, I love the designs, love getting to see the monsters. That's the main thing I love about Capsule Monster Chess. So, we move on to Duel Monsters once more for our final duel against Seto Kaiba. in the dual dome and everything.
Before we move on, I did want to just bring up the other thing of, Kaiba going so hard on the brotherly love isn't a thing, even though you get to do your thing. Death T4 is not really a thing in which I think Yugi's gonna win. I know I don't think he's gonna lose. I know he's gonna win. You're my shitty little brother. I don't believe in you. Fuck you.
Yeah, I appreciate, again, something I was talking about earlier, but I didn't really finish my thought, was we start off with Kaiba being, a regular, just kind of shitty kid, but then in Death T, we slowly turn him into, like, just evil incarnate. He is just the worst fucking person. He's so, like, everything he does because it's evil.
He is, as Mokova said, possessed by a demon of gaming.
Exactly. And that really is a good way to put it, though. He feels like a demon.
Yeah, and I think that's important to think about going forward, that this is, like, the darkest we have seen Kaiba up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like, getting into the dual monsters thing, I do appreciate that also. We didn't talk about this before, but, going through Death T, Yugi starts to, like, hold the cards, and he can literally feel, like, the heart of the cards, as in the literal, like, when I hold the cards, I can feel Grandpa's heart beating, and I can tell from the heartbeats that he is doing really bad. So we gotta go faster. We gotta wrap this up. My grandpa's gonna die.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it immediately adds this extra, like, spirituality to the concept of, the cards.
Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, we are building up that the cards are, like, again, my guess is that the cards are Millennium Item. That's the only thing that makes sense to me, in terms of, like, again, the beating of the hearts, and we'll talk about it more when I get there, but there's something at the very, very, very beginning of Duelist Kingdom that also makes me believe that they have to be Millennium Items, because I don't know how else it would work.
But yeah, like, thinking about them as being, more magic than anything else also helps me, like, in hindsight, think about stuff like, the ending of Cards with Teeth, where his grandpa's Blue Eyes White Dragon doesn't attack because it is, it's not Kaiba's card, it's his grandpa's card, and so it chooses not to attack and it kills itself. Like, I can accept that a bit more.
Yeah. It's something I don't think I'm ever going to really like, but I might like it more once we get a explanation for it. But, like it's going to be one of those things where, in retrospect, I go, like, oh, shit, okay, that actually makes a lot of sense, and I fully like it now. But not having an explanation for it right now, even if I do think there is going to be one that comes, I just think, like, it's whatever. I don't really like it that much.
That's fair enough.
There's no, like, brain blast, oh, here's why. Right now, it's just a thing to do to win.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, yeah, that's why I'm not really into it. I think I'd be way more into it if it was just a supernatural element, but the fact that it is just a way for Yugi to cheat and win is always so disappointing.
Yeah, I can respect that.
And yeah, I think, like, there's not much I have to say about this, because I am just not a fan of the, like, we are dueling, like, even the Capsule monster stuff, like, we are two people sitting down to have, like, a duel over a game. It seems to be not my favorite stuff, and my favorite stuff seems to be way more than just, like, random encounter kind of stuff. Or, I mean, the thing that I love the most in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is just the lore stuff, the overall story that we're going down.
Right.
But yeah, the duels themselves, not really that into. Hopefully later I will be more into them, but it's hard to be into them when the rules are constantly changing of every game we're playing, or just, like, the rules are so barely a thing that it's hard to get invested.
Yeah, it's an aesthetic that's a real, like, there's no right or wrong way to look at it. It's really just a, like, will it grow on you, or, like, the way in which it progresses, does that work for you better?
Yeah.
It's very, like, unique to, like, almost unique to just Yu-Gi-Oh! Because even in other, like, trading card game series or, like, gaming series, like, nothing quite has this aesthetic. And it is, something I think people think about a lot, is just being like, oh yeah, that's a Yu-Gi-Oh! Thing. Like, only Yu-Gi-Oh! Does this. Nothing else is like this.
Mm-hmm. Like, I am the kind of person who, even as a kid, I'm the same sort of way of, like, no, there's no, like, if I can't justify it in my head, there's no reason, then, I don't like it. And, yeah, that's just how I feel. Like, I've never been, there's certain level of, like, suspension of disbelief that I will never be able to fully get over in certain things. And it's not even suspension of disbelief. It's just like it's just something that feels cheap to me.
Right. It's.
And, like, I like the idea of it in a story sense. The Heart of the Cards I like as a character thing, but yeah, I just don't like it as a game thing.
Mm-hmm. This is also when you start to get into the really weird, like, the dub is really pushing information into the the manga now, which is not affiliated with 4Kids, but because Yu-Gi-Oh is so enormous, they have to like take stuff from the dub. The big one being like Hitotsumi Giants, and then the translator's note of this is Japanese for one-eyed giants, and then you look at the Japanese name for Hitotsumi Giants, and it is called Cyclops.
Right, yeah, I was so confused on that, because I was like, that has to be what it is saying, right? But that can't be true.
Yeah, and like right under that, Dark Yugi says your Cyclops was destroyed with that attack, and like a lot of the time the manga will try to do something like that, where they will say something like like that works just as a natural it looks like a Cyclops. He's calling it a Cyclops, but it is also them trying to work in the actual name, or an alternate translation.
Yeah, it is putting in like both translations of it to try and like appease everybody.
Mm-hmm. It's a very, like, turn-of-the-century manga thing. I don't know if any modern manga has to do that in any way.
One Piece. Just because it's so old, like, it's so, long-running that there's so many like, again, when I think about this, I think of Big Mom doing Ikoku Sovereignty, because way back in the day, they translated that attack as Ikoku Sovereignty, which is, Ikoku just means sovereignty. Or something like that. It's something close. It's like a pun or whatever, but basically just the same word twice. But yeah, so modern manga does have to deal with it, but it's just like with because it's so old, I guess. Because that doesn't count.
Yeah. It's still turn of the century manga shit. It's just that One Piece is so long running that it has to keep it all there.
Yeah, it did start at the turn of the century, so
it's the kind of stuff where, God, I wish... I mean, I just need a thing at the end of each volume of One Piece that is the big, like, now here's all the translation stuff that we've already explained or that someone's, like, said on a podcast that we just have to recompile every single time so you can go, like, wait, why is Ikoku Sovereignty? Why isn't that translated?
Yeah. But... anyway, getting back to this game, Kaiba does the whole... Kaiba has the Mind Crush thing done to him. His heart is broken into a bunch of pieces, and he's got to piece them all back together. And when he does, he will find the good nature of his heart.
Yeah, that big shot of his soul and him like putting together the pieces of his soul once more is so. It feels so iconic to me.
Oh yeah, I love this move so much. It is. It is the perfect move for somebody that fights for justice, because it is like you can just completely transform an evil person. Like you get the satisfaction of, it's not like an instantaneous, I just have a button that makes you good. Like, it is up to them, and it does take a long time. And like, they're in a coma, they deal with the circumstances of being, like, they deal with consequences of being a bad person, but it also results in them being a better person in the end. Hopefully. I still don't know if Kaiba is going to be a better person in the end. We'll see. But my prediction is still he's going to come back 1,000 times eviler. He's going to go, you didn't know, Yugi, if I put back together the puzzle this way, it would make me even richer and more evil.
I kept only the evil pieces. But yeah, I do like the idea of this, like, magical rehabilitation, because that is something that Dark Yugi never really does. Usually it is way more of just I'm going to make you suffer forever.
Yeah.
See pixels forever, bitch.
It was a real moment of like, wait, so you didn't have to murder all those people? You're telling me we could have just done this?
Not just for Kaiba.
And he doesn't do it after that, so it's a real, like, I did it once, and then everybody else must suffer. But yeah, I like that moment a lot.
Mm-hmm. I also like after he gets mind crushed, when Mokuba gives everyone the backstory.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, because that recontextualized so much of everything.
Yeah, like, we don't get backstory for the villains for, like, the early part of Yu-Gi-Oh! At all. It's always just like, this is a shitty person who kills people for no reason, and then they get brain destroyed, and that's it.
I mean,
Fuck it, they're done.
Even like Shoddy, like, we don't have a backstory for Shoddy, but we do have, like, we got a lot with him, and he's not like someone that you're supposed to hate, but he is, we don't get a backstory for him either. Like
I like seeing... Oh, go ahead.
I was just say, it makes him way more empathetic, Kaiba, of a person, and, like, you can see how it all got to him. Like, he started it with very good intentions, but then slowly, like, it's the kind of thing of, like, to be able to have gotten to the circumstance in which he had, like, all the board members on his side and was like, I'm taking over the company from you. The only way to be able to even do that is if you are heartless. Like, not as in to say, like, that was a heartless move, but the amount of work that he would have to put in to get to that point would, break his like, niceness down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, like... And just seeing also the way that he was trained in terms of, like, studies or in terms of business and everything like that, you really get why he's the way he is now.
Yeah, like, even before he, meets their adoptive father, like, they start off with being in absolute poverty, their relatives taking all their money and leaving them, with absolutely nothing, and then they go into the big, like, oh, this is a big CEO who is also a big gamer.
Mm-hmm.
And those are, like, you can see where all of Kaiba's personality comes from.
Yeah.
I mean...
like, fully. And Makuba as well, like, you can see why Makuba was a very shitty kind of spoiled kid, but was also, like, very quick to change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, the fact that their adoptive father, like, at the start of the arc, we get the guy running out of Kaiba land screaming, this man's a monster! Yeah. He killed his own father in order to get the company. And then we see how it happens, and it is like, Kaiba's... How do I put it? Like, there's some blood on Kaiba's hands, but at the same time, it's the big, like, yeah, this is also very traumatizing. This is the most, like...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He has very, like, Seto has huge Sawyer from Lost energy, and I want everybody to hate me. And,
that's a good way of putting it, yeah.
Because, like, yeah, he could have totally, explained the situation, but it's also, like, if he explained the situation, would anybody believe him? Absolutely not. There's no human being on Earth who would believe what happened, because it's insane. Fucking, what was his name? Gozabura was just what a fucking wild move. I don't know if there's any character that is more insane in all of manga.
I mean, he fully believes in what he was saying. He is the ultimate, like, if you lose a game, you deserve to die. This is going so far beyond the shadow game concept, because it's not even, forcefully enforced. It is him going, I could do anything else here, but I choose to commit suicide in front of you.
He is the first, like, pro-capitalist man that I you know what? I respect you. He respects capitalism so much, he went, you know what? I lost. I'm dying.
I am a loser, and this is what losers do.
Look, Seto, this is trickle-down economics. But yeah, that flashback was incredible. Because, yeah, again, no one's going to believe him, but even still, he could try and, say something, but he's not going to. He's going to fan the flames even harder, not be like, yeah, that's right, I killed him, but just be like, why, you got no proof? Like, yeah, what are you going to do about it? It really is selling his image more and more, like, as he's trying to sell his image to the children. He doesn't really give a shit about what adults think. This whole company is for children, even though it's not like they're buying anything, I imagine. So I don't know how this works, but
they can get their parents to buy stuff for them.
That's true.
That's how Yu-Gi-Oh made all of its money.
That is very true. You're not wrong.
I also like it, like, as one final thing, I also appreciate that seeing that they were orphans, that they lost everything, through pure malice. Like, it then also recontextualizes, the start of the arc where Mokuba's saying, like, yeah, my big bro does wants to, like, build these Kaiba lands in order to, like, make poor kids happy. Like, at the very start, it seems like way more of just this is a really, this is such a thin veneer. Obviously, he just wants to kill people or whatever. Like, can't be okay. But then, like, in the midst of all of this, you go, like, oh, yeah, some part of him does want to make orphans happy. Like, he does want these, like... And it also kind of justifies the whole, like, the structure of them. The fact that it is, like, an indoor theme park. Because it would be a lot easier to, like, put all around the world and, like, put them in places where the climate would be really bad. As opposed to, like, an outside theme park.
Yeah, I would love, I highly, 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 highly doubt we would ever get this. But I would love to see, in the future, a, like, Kaiba makes death tea, but we don't call it death tea. Maybe we call it fun tea or something. And... Anyway, I hope he makes fun tea, and in it is basically everything that was in Death Tea, but this time it doesn't kill you. It is just laser tag, and this is just a, like, haunted amusement park ride.
That would be really cool to see.
Yeah. I don't know how you do Rhythm Rock, but maybe make them pillows.
Maybe. Because I feel like there's got to be more accessibility as well. Like, you can't expect all the kids to go into the shaft where stuff falls down and use that anytime they want to get to the fourth one.
That's true, yeah. I mean, to be fair, there was a huge crowd there, so I imagine there's other ways to do it.
Oh, yeah.
I assume the whole crowd didn't have to fight assassins.
You raise a good point, yeah.
Maybe they did.
Maybe the main gang is just really, really bad. Maybe all these children were able to fight assassins and win.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, speaking of, Yu-Gi-Oh! Being... like, we were talking about Death Tea and we were talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! The actual card game selling so insanely well. It is really funny that I was not expecting it, but so much of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is capitalism is the enemy. And that is so funny for a series that is the #1 card game in the world. Which I also didn't even... I always thought it was #2, but I looked it up and it was #1. I had no idea.
Yeah.
That's insane to me. But yeah, it's so funny. Like, it is completely accidental, which makes it so much better than, like, something like the Lego Movie, which I love the Lego Movie, but the Lego Movie's so fucking weird and being anti-capitalist, and it's the most capitalist thing. You know what I mean? Like, Lego is insanely huge, and it's like, from the get-go, you knew what you were doing. Like, from the get-go, you know how weird this is. Whereas, like, Yu-Gi-Oh! It's an accident, you know? You can't blame him for accidentally becoming the #1 card game in the world.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to buy it from just, like, the things that started off with, just like, this is a cool story or this is fun art, and then it does unbelievably well, as opposed to, like, we're going to make a story about how conformity is, the devil and how you should be able to do anything you want, but we do have these very specific sets that we do not want people to bootleg.
Yeah.
And you have to use our exact product in order to be creative.
And Yu-Gi-Oh! Is like the anti-card game in that so much of what Takahashi does is like he plays a game and goes, I liked that game a lot, but I really wish it worked differently. I really wish it weren't so focused on the rules and were more focused on imagination. And it's like, fair enough. I completely understand the mindset, but it's so funny that the #1 card game in the world, from everything I've seen so far, really feels like it is the anti-card game. It is so much of the just, I hate how card games work, and I wish they worked more like D&D.
100. That's such a good way of putting it. Like, the Japanese viewers had a different experience because, a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! Stuff came out, and then the anime, and then, the Duel Monsters anime, and then the card game. Mm-hmm. Whereas, like, in the West, like, the card game and the anime came out, like, around the same time-ish, or, like, it got popular around the same time. It was a very clear, like, oh, obviously this is just a thing made to sell these cards. Yeah. But there's no other thing like that, in the sense that, like, even with something like Beyblade, where you have, like, magic beasts inside of the tops that fight each other, like, fundamentally, they're still saying, like, you know, you have to put the weight, you know, ring on your Beyblade in order to make it work better, or you have to buy a better Beyblade. But Yu-Gi-Oh, at least, you know, a lot of early Yu-Gi-Oh is very much like, here's how the main character wins, and the way in which he wins is not at all the way in which you are supposed to play the game in any way whatsoever physically, because it's not possible to create a game that works this way unless you just, you know, like, unless you are an adult, unless you can, like, come up with D&D terms and go, like, okay, this is how we're going to justify it. You have to be able to, you know, improv this stuff, and we have to have a third party here in order to say specifically, that makes sense, that's valid, or no, that is such a big reach that I cannot allow it. There's no way that the holograms would allow this to work out.
Yeah, it's even more interesting than D&D, because you have to have a referee, because it's a duel between two people. There's no, like, dungeon master. Like, you have to have a referee.
I mean, speaking as someone who was on the playground, that is how it worked for a lot of, like, you know, there are the games that you play that are just like, we play using the rule book, and then there are the ones that were like more, we're trying to play like they do, you know, in the TV show.
Yeah.
And those ones had to have a crowd around so they could say, this makes sense, or no, that is insane, or you can do a lot of things were specifically like, yeah, that makes sense because this card is like this card. When we saw this do that in the anime, so that makes sense. That works. Whereas a lot of others were like, well, even though the character has, you know, like a gun on his back, we think he just fights with the sword, so it doesn't make sense that you can say he takes out the gun and uses that to snipe your magic card.
And see, that's the kind of thing that's so hard for me to get into Yu-Gi-Oh, even in the manga itself, and I'm trying so hard because I love the idea of it, but I don't know why it just never hits me right. And so when I'm reading it in the moment, it's all like, it is funny to me, but I can never take it seriously.
Yeah, it's really, really tough. I fully understand. Like, if it never works for you and you end up not liking it, I would still fully understand it, because it's so specific. It is so unlike anything else.
I'm becoming more and more adjusted to it, but, like, there's certain things that bother me more than others when it comes to the duel. Like, there's a lot of stuff that I'm just like, yeah, whatever, I'm fine with it being weird, but then there's certain stuff where, like, I am more upset when they say something specific and then do the opposite. But, like, if it's just like, oh, the card looks like this, so it could do this, I'm more like, okay, whatever, I guess that can be the case. But, yeah, I'm fine with it, but yeah, I'm not sure what else to say. I was gonna say, like, we're gonna get into it next game, but just talking about the fact, like, he makes card games like D&D, and yet still he treats D&D like it is a battle between the players and the dungeon master as well. Like, he's got a very specific idea of everything.
Yeah. I mean, that is where some of the most interesting fiction and, like, especially manga, because I see it so often in manga, comes from. That specific, like, this is a human being who is coming, like, a human being who will say X, Y, and Z about, like, these are the themes of the series, this is a thing that works, but then if you read the series, you're like, oh, but they're coming in with these very specific preconceptions that no one else on the planet would think of, and they are just acting like this is completely normal.
Yeah, like, they don't even say, oh, this is a thing about the series, because they don't realize it about themselves.
It is most like, yeah, obviously everyone thinks this is how it works, right? Why would I have to discuss this?
Obviously everybody hates normal card games, and this is how they want them to be. But yeah, I think that's all I really have to say about Death Tea. I thought I was going to have more to say about Death Tea, but yeah, I talked so much about it in my reactions then.
Yeah, and, like, of the way in which the manga officially splits, like, this early part of Yu-Gi-Oh! Into 3 parts. Like, the first part is all sorts of stuff, and so we spent so long on all of the individual arcs and, like, one-shot chapters.
Yeah.
And then the Death Tea area is very slim, and then, like, the next discussion is going to be super duper long, because that is, like, everything else. That's way more like the school arc.
And also, I was... in reading Death Tea, it's split up into so many T-numbers that I, would do my reaction to each, like, individual thing, so I'd have a lot of time to talk about each one, versus, like, the next arc we're gonna get through, I'd read all in one batch, so I have a lot more to say in retrospect, and everything like that.
It sounds like these are very, very good reactions that people should pay money for.
It sounds like you should give me money. If there's one thing I've learned from Yu-Gi-Oh, it's that you should pay me money.
We are not sponsored by Kaiba Corp. We don't have the big Kaiba Corp dollars.
I swear I'm not going to use your money to hire a serial killer.
You're not going to make the audience experience death?
Well, I mean, I do that in most of my reactions, but I can't deny that you may experience death if you watch my reactions. But it will be worth it, I promise.
You'll reassemble the pieces of your heart afterwards. It's fine.
I will reassemble the pieces of your soul and you'll come back with better taste. I'll see you for that. Until then, get the fuck out of here.
Bye.